The first light of dawn rises behind the expedition as 7 lanterns are lit before the entrance to the ancient structure. The warm glow of morning quickly fades as Elias leads the small group through the shattered doorway into darkness. Their lanterns illuminate only a few steps ahead, while the immense chamber absorbs nearly all of their light. Dust hangs motionless in the still air, disturbed for the first time in more than 15 centuries. Every footstep echoes through a chamber so vast that its ceiling cannot be seen. Even the combined light of every lantern fails to reach the darkness above. High overhead, enormous fragments of an unknown machine hang silently from corroded metal. Twisted metal frames and broken forms drift in the darkness like silent monuments to the forgotten civilization. None of the explorers can imagine what these objects once were, or why they were suspended above them. Towering pillars disappear into shadow. Rusted railings overlook unseen upper levels. Wide passages vanish into darkness beyond the reach of the lanterns. Shattered glass glitters faintly beneath layers of dust, while fragments of polished stone, rusted metal, and collapsed displays remain scattered across the immense floor. The chamber possesses a scale beyond anything any of them have ever witnessed. Even the engineers stand silently, instinctively looking upward into the darkness. The building itself feels less like a structure and more like an ancient mountain carved by human hands. Elias slowly walks toward the center of the vast chamber before stopping. The others gather around him, their lanterns forming a small circle of warm light, surrounded by an endless ocean of darkness. "My friends," Elias says quietly, "this expedition exists because I believe these ruins were worth finding. Every one of you entrusted your future to the path I chose. The responsibility belongs to me." He rests a hand upon the reinforced leather bandolier crossing his chest. "I will walk first, not because I believe myself greater than any of you, but because if these ancient stones demand a life today, it should be mine before yours." Elias turns, revealing the forged iron ring permanently fastened to the back of his bandolier. "I ask that you secure the rope." One of the engineers silently steps forward with a coil of rope. He threads it through the iron ring and carefully ties it fast before testing the knot twice. The remaining engineers quietly inspect the line, while the keeper of records watches in silence. No one argues. The lanterns are adjusted. Oil levels are checked. The rope grows taut. Elias raises his lantern. Without another word, he takes the first step into the endless darkness. One by one, 6 more lanterns follow. Behind them, the morning sun continues to rise over a world they have already left behind. The 7 lanterns spread outward through the immense chamber, each remaining within sight of the others, while leaving enough distance to examine the ancient structure from different angles. No one rushed. Every step was deliberate. Every sound lingered within the vast hall before slowly disappearing into the darkness above. The immense chamber remained silent except for the quiet scrape of boots across centuries of settled dust, and the occasional whisper of loose fragments shifting beneath careful footsteps. Elias slowly began drawing the first map of the structure. The lines were simple at first: walls, pillars, open passages, stairways disappearing into darkness. Every feature received its place upon the page before a small identifying code was carefully written beside it. A short distance away, the second keeper of records documented every observation. Each note corresponded to the same identifying code Elias placed upon the growing map. Together they created the first permanent record of the ancient structure since its abandonment more than 15 centuries before. The engineers focused on nothing but the building itself. One carefully examined each massive pillar from floor to shoulder height before continuing upward as far as his lantern could reveal. Another slowly traced long fractures running through polished stone, quietly determining whether they had formed during the building's construction or many centuries after its abandonment. A third studied the junctions where towering walls met the floor, searching for signs of settling, shifting, or hidden weakness beneath the accumulated debris. Every visible crack was discussed. Every point of concern received a matching code upon Elias's growing map. Nothing was considered too small to record. The walls themselves told stories. Some remained astonishingly straight despite the unimaginable passage of time. Others leaned almost imperceptibly beneath burdens they had carried for countless generations. Rust-stained portions of the stone where ancient metal hidden within had slowly surrendered to time. Here and there, sections of decorative stone had fallen away, exposing unfamiliar materials buried beneath the surface. Every discovery deepened the mystery. As the survey continued, additional markings slowly appeared across Elias's map. Safe passages, areas requiring caution, structural concerns, unidentified objects, possible routes into deeper portions of the building. The empty page gradually transformed into the first understanding of a place no living person had ever seen. No artifact was disturbed. No doorway was forced open. No object was removed before the ancient building could reveal its knowledge. It would first earn their respect. The survey continued deeper into the silent hall. The survey continued deeper into the immense hall. The 7 lanterns advanced slowly through the silence, each remaining within sight of the others, while the engineers carefully examined every wall, every pillar, and every section of ceiling before allowing the expedition to continue. Nothing escaped inspection. Every crack was measured. Every irregularity was discussed. Every point of concern received another identifying code upon Elias's growing map, while the keeper of records carefully documented each corresponding observation. As Elias slowly followed one wall with the light of his lantern, something unusual caught his attention. Small metal projections extended from the polished stone at remarkably even intervals. They appeared deliberately placed. Each remained firmly secured despite the passing centuries. Their surfaces carried only the faintest signs of age, unlike the heavily corroded metal found elsewhere throughout the structure. The discovery halted the survey. Elias carefully marked the location upon his map before assigning the next observation code. The second keeper measured the precise distance separating each metal projection, recording every measurement beside the matching code within his journal. The unusual spacing suggested purpose. Nothing about their placement appeared accidental. Beneath the wall lay thousands of tiny fragments unlike anything the expedition had ever encountered. Small pieces of thin material covered the ancient floor in faded shades of white, blue, red, yellow, and green. Many shattered into even smaller fragments beneath the slightest touch, while others remained strangely flexible despite their extreme age. No one recognized the material. Elias carefully knelt upon one knee. Using his gloved hand, he gathered several of the larger fragments and folded them gently into a small paper specimen pouch. The pouch received the same identifying code already marked upon the map. Satisfied, he slipped it into one of the storage pouches fastened to the bandolier crossing his chest. The specimen would remain with the map forever. Its exact place of discovery would never be forgotten. While Elias completed the catalog, the engineers continued their work. Lanterns swept methodically across the wall. Stone joints were examined. Support columns were inspected. The portions of the ceiling that were visible received another careful assessment before the route ahead was judged safe. Only then did Elias return to the front of the expedition. Lantern raised, map secured. The rope behind him remained taut. Together, the 7 explorers continued deeper into the silent structure. The immense hall stretched onward into darkness beyond the reach of the 7 lanterns. Towering pillars marched into the distance with remarkable precision, while polished stone floors disappeared beneath centuries of settled dust. Every few steps, another section of the vast chamber emerged from the darkness before fading once again behind the explorers. The expedition continued its careful survey. Elias remained at the front, steadily expanding the growing map within his journal. Every doorway, pillar, and architectural feature received another identifying code before the matching observations were recorded by the second keeper of records. The engineers spread themselves across the width of the great hall, inspecting walls, columns, and the unseen ceiling above. Hairline fractures, loose stone, and structural damage were examined before another step was taken. Nothing was overlooked. Far ahead, the light of Elias's lantern reflected from something unlike stone. As the expedition approached, an immense twisted framework slowly emerged from the darkness, curved sheets of impossibly thin metal, broken structural ribs, fragments of unfamiliar machinery. The enormous object rested beneath a mound of shattered masonry occupying much of the great hall. Whatever it had once been, it had fallen from far above. The engineers immediately halted the advance. For several long minutes they studied the collapse without speaking. Lanterns climbed across the wreckage while careful hands tested broken stone and exposed beams. The object had struck the floor with unimaginable force before finally coming to rest centuries earlier. Time had settled the collapse. Nothing shifted. The engineers quietly agreed it could be approached safely. Working together, they removed loose debris from one side of the wreckage. Behind the tangled metal, they uncovered a narrow doorway almost completely hidden by the collapse. Barely enough room remained for a single person. Elias carefully lowered himself and attempted to squeeze through. Within moments, the safety rope caught against the twisted framework. He backed out. They tried once more. Again, the rope snagged. After a brief discussion, the knot was untied from the iron ring upon Elias's bandolier. For the first time since entering the museum, he continued without it. One by one, the explorers climbed over broken stone and squeezed through the narrow opening. Beyond the doorway, they expected another great hall. Instead, they entered a surprisingly small chamber. Rows of low shelving filled the room. Many had collapsed beneath the weight of time, while others still stood beneath thick blankets of dust. Rusted hooks projected from the shelves in neat rows. Broken glass glittered across the floor. Thousands of tiny fragments of unknown materials lay scattered everywhere. Whatever this room had once been, it had served a very different purpose than the monumental halls outside. Near the base of one fallen shelf, Elias noticed several small objects reflecting the light of his lantern. Unlike everything surrounding them, these strange packets remained completely sealed. Their surfaces shimmered softly with a metallic luster unlike paper, leather, cloth, or any metal known to the expedition. Though faded by time, their colors remained visible. One side displayed rows of unfamiliar writing. The other bore a remarkably preserved illustration. A human figure stood dressed in brilliant white garments unlike anything the explorers had ever seen. Its face disappeared behind a perfectly smooth, transparent dome. One gloved hand held a pale rectangular object between two darker layers. No one understood the image. No one recognized the writing. No one could identify the strange material protecting whatever remained inside. Elias carefully marked the location upon his map before assigning the next catalog number. The second keeper completed the matching entry within the expedition journal. Only then did Elias remove a folded paper specimen envelope from one of the pouches on his bandolier. The catalog number was written upon the envelope before one of the mysterious sealed packets was gently placed inside. The envelope disappeared safely back into its pouch. Its exact place of discovery would never be forgotten. The 7 lanterns remained motionless as the expedition silently contemplated the first completely preserved object they had yet recovered from the ancient museum. The expedition spent several more minutes carefully examining the small chamber before Elias finally closed his journal. The mysterious room had yielded more questions than answers. Whatever purpose it had once served remained impossible to determine. But there was little more to learn without risking damage to the countless fragile objects scattered across the floor. The surviving objects would remain undisturbed until the museum could someday be explored in greater detail. With one final survey of the room, the expedition gathered their equipment and returned to the colossal hallway from which they came. Beyond it, the museum stretched onward into silence. The hallway before them was immense, massive stone walls extended into darkness, while colossal columns lined both sides of the hallway like silent guardians of another age. Their lanterns illuminated only the lowest portions of the pillars before the light vanished into blackness overhead. The ceiling itself remained completely invisible. Every footstep echoed for several long moments before slowly fading somewhere high above, revealing only that the unseen space overhead was far beyond the reach of their lanterns. The expedition advanced cautiously. No one hurried. The discoveries made within the museum had changed the way the engineers viewed the ancient structure. Every wall, every support column, every seam within the stone received careful attention. They no longer saw an abandoned ruin. They saw an engineered structure that had somehow endured for more than 15 centuries. After several hundred careful paces, the lead engineer abruptly signaled the expedition to halt. A long fissure stretched across the stone wall beside them. Unlike the countless weathered cracks scattered throughout the museum, this fracture immediately drew the engineer's attention. It began near the floor before climbing diagonally across the wall and disappearing upward into darkness beyond the reach of their lanterns. Fine gray powder rested within portions of the opening, while small fragments of stone lay scattered beneath it. The edges remained remarkably sharp despite the passage of centuries. 3 engineers stepped forward. They carefully examined the surrounding columns, tracing the path of the fracture while studying the stone around it. One inspected the floor, while another followed the crack upward until darkness concealed its upper end. After several long moments, they quietly concluded that the building had shifted beneath its own tremendous weight. Sometime during the centuries since humanity had disappeared. Although the hallway remained safe enough to cross, no one wished to underestimate the ancient structure. One engineer removed a thick block of white chalk from his satchel. Large warning triangles were carefully drawn beside the damaged section of wall, followed by broad arrows directing attention toward the structural failure. The brilliant white markings contrasted sharply against the weathered stone and would be impossible for future expeditions to overlook. Elias carefully recorded the location within his growing map, while another keeper transferred the into his journal. The safety rope was then secured once again to the iron ring on Elias's back. The knot was checked twice. 3 engineers took hold of the line behind him. Should weakened flooring collapse or another section of the building fail without warning, they intended to pull him to safety immediately. Only after every precaution had been completed did the expedition continue. The immense hallway stretched onward into darkness. Then, almost imperceptibly, the darkness ahead began to change. A faint gray glow slowly appeared in the distance. With every cautious step, the light became stronger, until the keepers realized it did not come from their lanterns. It was sunlight. Moments later, the endless hallway opened into a chamber so vast that every member of the expedition instinctively stopped where they stood. Morning sunlight descended from somewhere beyond the darkness high overhead, forming a brilliant column of golden light in the center of the chamber. Dust drifted silently through the beam, each tiny particle shimmering as though suspended in the air itself. Beyond the illuminated center, the immense circular room disappeared into cool shadow, leaving only hints of its true size. No one moved. The keepers simply stood together, in silent awe beneath the distant skylight, overwhelmed by the scale of what they had discovered. They had reached the heart of the museum. The expedition remained motionless beneath the distant skylight, each member silently absorbing the breathtaking scale of the chamber before them. The immense circular room felt almost impossible to comprehend. Morning sunlight descended from somewhere far beyond the reach of their lanterns, illuminating the center of the chamber while the outer perimeter remained cloaked in shadow. The opening above could not be seen. It existed only as the distant source of the brilliant shaft of light pouring into the room below. Dust drifted lazily through the beam, glittering as though countless tiny stars had become suspended within the still air. The silence was almost complete. Only the faint clink of lantern chains, the quiet rustle of clothing, and the distant echoes of careful footsteps disturbed the ancient chamber. The expedition advanced into the sunlight with deliberate caution. Before them stood numerous short stone pedestals arranged with remarkable symmetry. They formed an orderly set of rings surrounding the illuminated center of the atrium, each pedestal presenting a single object as though it had once been considered worthy of careful examination. Time had shown them little mercy. Some objects had collapsed into rusted fragments that no longer resembled anything recognizable. Others were cracked, broken, or partially buried beneath centuries of accumulated dust. Glass had shattered, metals had corroded, organic materials had almost completely disappeared. Whatever purpose these objects had once served had been surrendered to the passage of time. The keepers approached carefully. No one reached toward the displays. Even without understanding what they were seeing, everyone recognized that many of the artifacts had become extraordinarily fragile. A careless touch could erase something that had survived more than 15 centuries. Each pedestal revealed another mystery. One supported a heavily corroded brass instrument covered with delicate markings and tiny adjustment wheels whose purpose no one could imagine. Another displayed a polished section of beautifully banded stone unlike any commonly found within their homeland. Nearby rested a fractured crystal object, sunlight passing through the surviving fragments scattered faint colors across the surrounding floor. Another pedestal supported the fossilized remains of an ancient creature preserved within carefully polished stone. Elsewhere rested rusted mechanical assemblies, unusual minerals, carefully prepared crystal specimens, and objects fashioned from materials that no member of the expedition could identify. None appeared to be treasure. None possessed any obvious practical purpose. Yet every pedestal had been constructed with identical care, suggesting that knowledge itself had once been worthy of display. Elias carefully recorded each observation while the engineers quietly examined the stone pedestals themselves. Every display had been positioned with remarkable precision, naturally guiding visitors through the center of the chamber before leading them toward the surrounding passageways. Only after documenting the displays did the expedition slowly raise their lanterns toward the perimeter of the immense room. 3 monumental doorways gradually emerged from the surrounding darkness. They stood equally spaced around the circular atrium. Each was identical in height and width. Each disappeared into darkness beyond the reach of the lantern light. 2 of the passageways remained completely open. The third had vanished beneath an enormous mound of strange white material. Unlike the gray stone surrounding it, the obstruction possessed a pale, almost bone-white color. It spilled outward from the doorway in an irregular mass before disappearing back into darkness beyond. Even from the center of the chamber, it was immediately obvious that whatever blocked the entrance was unlike anything the expedition had encountered since entering the museum. No one attempted to approach it. The keepers simply stood beneath the distant skylight, silently studying the 3 possible paths before them. The museum had presented another choice. Whatever knowledge lay ahead had been divided into separate journeys. The expedition would now have to decide which mystery to pursue first. The immense atrium still held countless unanswered questions. 7 lanterns slowly drifted through the monumental chamber as the expedition resumed its careful survey. The warm light revealed one pedestal after another emerging from the darkness, each separated by wide expanses of polished stone floor buried beneath centuries of dust. Every pedestal received its own catalog number. Their dimensions were measured. Fragments resting upon or around them were carefully documented before being left undisturbed. Elias steadily expanded the growing map while the second keeper recorded the corresponding observations beside each matching code. The engineers continued their systematic inspection of the surrounding architecture, carefully examining towering columns, fractured stone, and the immense walls enclosing the atrium. Nothing escaped their attention. The survey gradually made its way back to the middle. All three massive doorways leading deeper into the museum could be faintly seen. Two remained open. The third had been almost completely blocked by an immense pale structure extending across the entrance. The group paused only briefly before reaching a unanimous decision. The obstruction itself might reveal as much as whatever lay beyond it. They would investigate the blocked entrance first. The safety rope remained secured to the iron ring upon his bandolier. As always, he walked first. The remaining 6 explorers followed several paces behind while maintaining gentle tension upon the line. The obstruction slowly emerged from the darkness as they approached. At first, it appeared to be a tangled mass of enormous pale beams. Some curved gracefully upward before disappearing into darkness. Others crossed one another in impossible shapes. Several vanished beneath collapsed stone, while others remained suspended above the blocked entrance. Nothing about the structure resembled masonry. Nothing resembled timber. Nothing resembled any worked material known to the expedition. The engineers quietly began their inspection. Lanterns climbed across the strange formation, while careful hands examined the surrounding stonework for signs of movement. Every point where the pale structure rested against the building received close attention. After several long minutes, they quietly reached the same conclusion. The obstruction had settled centuries earlier. It no longer shifted beneath its own weight. It could be approached safely. Elias slowly stepped forward alone. A few feet from the nearest curved section, he gently lowered his lantern onto the stone floor. The warm light climbed across the smooth, pale surface. He removed the glove from his right hand. Lifting the lantern once more, he brought the flame close enough to study every subtle detail. The surface possessed countless tiny pores. It looked neither like stone, nor wood, nor metal. Almost reluctantly, he reached forward. His fingertips slowly followed its gentle curve. Cool, dry, smooth. His hand stopped instantly. He stepped backwards so quickly the lantern flame flickered. He turned toward the others. For the first time since entering the museum, the calm confidence that had guided the expedition gave way to something far older. A quiet, instinctive fear. He spoke softly. "It's bone." No one answered. The 7 lanterns remained fixed upon the immense pale structure blocking the entrance. If Elias was correct, then the creature that had once carried those bones belonged to a world beyond anything they had ever imagined. The expedition remained staring in amazement at the pile of massive bones for a few minutes. Their attention remained fixed upon the pile of strange bones sealing the passage. The pale mass rose well above the height of a man before disappearing into darkness beyond the doorway. As the engineers carefully studied the obstruction, one noticed a faint metallic glimmer high upon the wall above the blocked entrance. It appeared only for an instant as the lantern light shifted. Curiosity replaced uncertainty. The engineer carefully lowered his pack onto the stone floor before opening one of its compartments. Inside rested several carefully prepared lengths of knuckle tree, each cut to a different size and thickness. Working with practiced efficiency, he joined the pieces together until they formed a long, remarkably rigid pole nearly 1.5 times his own height. From another pouch, he removed a forged iron hook and secured it firmly to the end before hanging one of the expedition's lanterns from it. Slowly, he raised the lantern toward the darkness above the doorway. The additional height carried the light beyond the reach of every previous attempt. Something reflected brilliantly: metal. As the lantern climbed higher, carefully formed letters gradually emerged from the shadows. Unlike the rusted objects scattered throughout the museum, these characters retained a dull metallic sheen. The sign had survived. Elias quietly updated the expedition map while the other keeper recorded the newly discovered information. The polished metal letters read: Special Exhibit, Geology and Engineering. The first word that drew puzzled expressions. None of them had encountered the term geology before. The keeper carefully copied the unfamiliar word into his journal exactly as it appeared while Elias completed his coded observations. Although its meaning remained unknown, the expedition immediately understood that this special exhibit had once explored some relationship between this unfamiliar field and the practice of engineering. The engineers looked once more toward the pale obstruction. Clearing the passage would soon become a priority. For now, it remained impossible. The expedition turned toward the next monumental doorway. Once again, the engineer raised the improvised lantern pole toward the darkness above the entrance. Another metal sign slowly emerged from the shadows. Its surface remained remarkably well preserved despite the passage of centuries. Elias carefully added the location to the growing map while the other keeper documented the inscription. The sign identified the next area: nature and natural sciences. The expedition paused only long enough to complete their records before continuing around the perimeter of the atrium. At the final doorway, the lantern was raised for a third time. Light climbed slowly across another surviving sign until the final inscription became visible: Technology and Innovation. The keepers silently studied the three great entrances surrounding the atrium. One promised knowledge of something unknown. Another appeared devoted to the natural world. The third suggested the achievements of humanity. The museum had revealed its first great divisions. The expedition now understood that every doorway led not simply to another room, but to an entirely different branch of human knowledge. Before venturing any farther into the museum, the expedition agreed that a short period of rest was necessary. The broad circle of sunlight offered the safest location they had encountered since crossing the threshold of the ancient building. Before setting anything upon the stone floor, several engineers carefully examined each of the short stone pedestals standing within the illuminated center of the atrium. They tested every pedestal for movement, gently pushing against them from several directions to ensure they had not been weakened by centuries of neglect. Only after confirming that the stone bases remained solid did the expedition begin removing their equipment. Heavy packs were carefully lowered onto the floor. Lanterns were arranged together where their light would remain useful should clouds briefly pass over the unseen skylight. Leather straps that had pressed into aching shoulders since sunrise were finally loosened. Several members quietly rolled their shoulders before sitting upon the smooth stone floor, resting their backs against the sturdy pedestals surrounding the circle of sunlight. For the first time since entering the museum, the weight of the expedition lifted from their bodies. Water skins were passed around the circle. Simple meals of coarse bread and smoked fish were quietly shared, while the morning sunlight provided a warmth none of them had expected to find within such an immense structure. No one hurried. The silence of the museum seemed almost inviting. As they rested, the conversation naturally turned toward everything they had witnessed since crossing the threshold. The immense scale of the building, the remarkable strength of the ancient stone, the unknown objects preserved upon the pedestals, the polished metal signs that had somehow endured where so much else had vanished. Again and again, their thoughts returned to the blocked doorway, the unfamiliar word geology, the promise of a special exhibit devoted to engineering, the enormous pile of bones that prevented them from reaching it. Whatever knowledge waited beyond that entrance had survived long enough to receive its own dedicated gallery within one of the greatest institutions ever constructed. They would return. They would clear the passage. For now, the mystery would remain. After allowing both body and mind a brief opportunity to recover, the expedition quietly rose to their feet. Packs were lifted back onto weary shoulders. Leather straps were tightened once more. Lanterns were collected. The safety rope was inspected before being secured once again to the iron ring at Elias's back. The brief comfort of the sunlight came to an end. The expedition gathered their resolve, turned toward the waiting galleries, and prepared to continue deeper into humanity's forgotten treasury of knowledge. For several quiet moments, no one spoke. The blocked passage would have to wait. Although the engineers longed to uncover the secrets hidden behind the special exhibit devoted to geology and engineering, the obstruction completely filling the entrance made further progress impossible without a much larger group. The remaining choices stood open before them. After a brief discussion, the expedition agreed that understanding the natural world would provide the greatest immediate benefit to every settlement struggling to rebuild civilization. Nature had sustained humanity long before machines. Perhaps it still held forgotten lessons waiting to be rediscovered. The expedition had gathered their equipment. Heavy packs had settled once more across tired shoulders. Lanterns were filled, carefully checked before the group turned toward the gallery marked Nature and Natural Sciences. As they crossed the outer edge of the atrium, the warmth of the morning sunlight slowly faded behind them. The familiar darkness returned. Their lanterns once again became the only source of light. The gallery beyond felt noticeably different from the immense stone halls they had explored earlier. The walls remained constructed from the same ancient stone, but carefully spaced display alcoves stretched away into the darkness on either side of the passage. Metal signs still marked each section, while bronze plaques rested beneath carefully preserved displays that had somehow survived the passage of more than 15 centuries. The expedition approached the first exhibit. Mounted upon a carefully carved stone pedestal rested several remarkable specimens preserved within crystal-clear blocks that had only slightly yellowed with age. A cluster of leaves, several winged seeds, a small branch bearing unopened buds. Each appeared perfectly suspended within the transparent material as though frozen in time. Beside them rested a polished cross-section of wood revealing countless tightly packed growth rings radiating outward from its center. Beneath the display, a thick bronze plaque remained firmly secured to the stone by metal fasteners. A deep green patina covered most of its surface, Yet the raised lettering remained surprisingly clear where centuries had gently polished the highest points. Elias carefully brushed away the remaining dust before slowly reading the title aloud to himself. Sugar Maple. The expedition immediately recognized the tree. Several members quietly nodded. Its wood was already familiar to them. Its leaves could be found throughout the forests surrounding their settlements. The remainder of the bronze plaque, however, described something none of them had ever imagined. During early spring, the tree naturally lifted sweet sap from its roots toward its branches. By carefully collecting the sap and gently heating it, the water could be removed until only a rich syrup remained. Continued heating produced crystallized maple sugar that could be stored for long periods without spoiling. The engineers exchanged surprised glances. Several members quietly smiled. For generations, sweetness had come at a price. Gathering honey required finding wild hives, calming angry bees, and accepting the risk of painful stings. Now they found themselves standing before evidence that entire forests quietly produced sweetness every spring without disturbing a single hive. Elias carefully updated the expedition map, while the other keeper recorded the remarkable discovery. The entire group lingered beside the exhibit longer than expected. Not because the tree itself was unfamiliar, but because they suddenly realized they had spent their entire lives walking among sugar without ever knowing it existed. Only after every observation had been completed did the expedition quietly gather their equipment once more. The next exhibit waited, only a short distance farther down the gallery. The expedition quietly continued deeper into the gallery. The soft glow of their lanterns revealed another carefully prepared display waiting only a short distance beyond the sugar maple exhibit. Like the previous display, the specimen rested upon a carefully carved stone pedestal. Time had weathered every surface, yet the exhibit remained remarkably intact. A long hollow stalk had been preserved within another transparent block. Beside it rested several broad green leaves, a section displaying the distinctive jointed structure of the stem, and several preserved shoots emerging from the surrounding soil. Behind the preserved specimens stood a remarkably detailed model many times larger than life. It revealed the internal structure of the strange plant, exposing countless strong fibers arranged around a hollow center. The engineers immediately recognized it. They had worked with the remarkable plant for months. Entire settlements already relied upon it for construction, tools, containers, scaffolding, and countless everyday tasks. Yet they had never seen it displayed with such care. Beneath the specimens rested another thick bronze plaque secured by sturdy metal fasteners. Elias gently brushed away the remaining dust before studying the unfamiliar title. His eyes paused upon the first word, quietly. Almost as though teaching himself to speak it correctly, he carefully sounded out each syllable. Bamboo. He repeated the unfamiliar word once more before the other keeper wrote it carefully into his journal. From that moment forward, the expedition quietly abandoned the name Knuckle Tree. It had once possessed another name, Bamboo. The remainder of the plaque described a remarkable plant unlike any other. Bamboo was not a tree. It was a grass. The engineers looked back toward the preserved stalk with expressions of quiet disbelief. The massive plant they had harvested for months, the material from which they had built homes, tools, scaffolding, ladders, and countless other necessities. belonged to the same great family as the grasses growing beneath their feet. The exhibit continued. Dozens of species existed throughout the world. Some remained small enough to fit within a person's hand. Others towered many times higher than a man. Different species possessed different strengths, flexibility, wall thicknesses, and ideal uses. Some were prized for construction, others for weaving, others for paper, others for food. The first civilization had carefully cultivated and transported bamboo throughout suitable regions of the world because no other natural material offered such remarkable versatility. The final section of the bronze plaque drew everyone's attention. A beautifully preserved map of the world occupied nearly half the display. The engineers stood silently before it. The museum identified the natural homeland of bamboo as lands lying upon the opposite side of the world. The distance separating the museum from bamboo's homeland was labeled as almost 10,000 miles. For several long moments, no one spoke. The expedition had always understood that distant lands existed. Now they found themselves looking upon evidence that humanity had once crossed oceans and continents simply to carry a remarkable plant from one side of the earth to the other. The world was larger than any of them had ever truly imagined. Yet somehow, the people who built this museum had known every corner of it. Elias quietly updated the expedition map, while the other keeper recorded the observations. The engineers continued studying the preserved specimens long after the journals had been closed. They had entered the gallery expecting to learn about a familiar plant. Instead, they had discovered that the world itself was far larger than they had ever dared imagine. The expedition quietly left the bamboo exhibit, each member carrying away a slightly different understanding of the world than they had possessed only moments before. The gallery remained silent. Only the soft echoes of careful footsteps and gently swaying lanterns accompanied their slow advance toward the next display. Another stone pedestal waited within its own carefully built alcove. Mounted upon it rested a beautifully polished cross-section taken from the trunk of a massive tree. Hundreds of tightly packed rings radiated outward from its center like ripples upon still water. Beside it rested preserved leaves, several acorns enclosed within transparent preservation blocks, and carefully prepared samples displaying the outer bark, pale sapwood, and darker heartwood. Behind the display stood a full-sized model of a mature tree, its broad canopy spreading gracefully across the wall. Although faded by centuries, enough color remained to reveal the remarkable size and shape of the ancient forest giant. Another thick bronze plaque rested beneath the display. Elias carefully removed the dust from its surface before reading the title, White Oak. The name required no explanation. Every member of the expedition recognized the tree immediately. Oak had long been one of the most valued timbers available to their settlements. Homes, beams, wagons, bridges, furniture, charcoal, and countless tools all depended upon its remarkable strength. Yet the information preserved beneath the title revealed a far deeper understanding than any of them had ever possessed. The exhibit explained that not all oak trees were the same. Many different species existed throughout the world. White oak possessed an unusual cellular structure that naturally resisted the movement of water through the wood. Because of this remarkable characteristic, it resisted decay far better than most other timbers while remaining exceptionally strong. Illustrations surrounding the preserved specimens showed the astonishing variety of ways humanity had once employed the tree. Massive timber frames supporting great buildings, ocean-going ships crossing distant seas, barrels preserving food and drink for years. Water wheels. Furniture expected to survive for generations. The engineers quietly examined every illustration. They had used oak because experience had taught them it lasted. The people who built the museum had understood precisely why. Knowledge had transformed tradition into science. Another illustration revealed the meaning of the countless rings preserved within the cross-section. Each ring represented 1 year of growth. Wide rings recorded favorable seasons. Narrow rings preserved years of hardship. Without writing a single word, every tree quietly carried the story of its own life beneath its bark. The expedition stood in thoughtful silence. A living record had surrounded humanity for countless generations. No one had ever realized the forests themselves had been quietly keeping time. Elias carefully updated the expedition map while the other keeper completed the day's observations. Several engineers lingered beside the polished cross-section, slowly counting rings with quiet fascination, before the expedition finally gathered its equipment once more. The Nature and Natural Sciences Gallery had already revealed an unexpected truth. Even the most familiar parts of the world still possessed countless secrets waiting to be understood. The expedition quietly continued deeper into the Nature and Natural Sciences Gallery. The next display appeared far simpler than those that had come before. Several delicate green fronds rested suspended within transparent preservation blocks, each leaf displaying an intricate pattern unlike any plant the expedition had previously examined so closely. Beside them rested several fossilized impressions preserved within carefully prepared slabs of dark stone. Every detail of the ancient leaves remained visible despite the unimaginable passage of time. Behind the display stood a remarkably detailed reconstruction of an ancient forest. Towering ferns rose far above the height of a man, while strange primitive plants covered the forest floor beneath them. None of the animals depicted within the scene resembled anything living in the world the expedition knew today. The engineers exchanged curious glances. This was not a lesson about farming. It was something else entirely. The thick bronze plaque rested beneath the display. Elias carefully brushed away the remaining dust before reading the title. Ferns. The name itself required no explanation. Every member of the expedition had seen ferns growing beneath the forests surrounding their settlements. What followed, however, challenged everything they believed they understood about the history of the world. The exhibit explained that ferns belonged to one of Earth's oldest surviving groups of plants. Long before humanity, long before kingdoms, long before written history. Forest filled with towering relatives of these humble plants had already covered the earth. The illustrations surrounding the exhibit revealed a sequence unlike anything the expedition had ever imagined. Ancient forests flourished. Great trees and enormous ferns lived, died, and slowly disappeared beneath mud and water. Layer upon layer accumulated over spans of time almost impossible to comprehend. Pressure, heat, the slow passage of ages. Eventually, those forests became the great coal deposits that later civilizations would uncover deep beneath the ground. The expedition stood in complete silence. The museum described spans of time measured not in generations, not in kingdoms, but in hundreds of millions of years. The number itself seemed almost meaningless. No person could truly imagine such an age. Even the 15th century, separating the expedition from the first civilization, suddenly felt insignificant beside the history of the Earth itself. Elias slowly studied the preserved fossil. The leaf impressed into the stone belonged to a forest that had vanished so long ago that no memory of it had survived. Yet here it rested before them, patiently waiting. The engineers quietly examined the illustrations once more. The stone beneath their feet, the mountains surrounding their homes, even the fuel buried beneath the earth. All possessed histories extending far beyond humanity itself. The world had not been built for mankind. Humanity had merely arrived during the latest chapter of an unimaginably ancient story. Elias quietly updated the expedition map, while the other keeper completed the observations. No one spoke as the expedition prepared to continue. The fern had revealed no new tool, no new material, no new invention. Instead, it had given them something far rarer: perspective. The expedition quietly departed the fern exhibit, each member carrying away a new appreciation for the unimaginable age of the world beneath their feet. The gallery remained silent. Only the soft glow of their lanterns disturbed the darkness as they approached the next carefully preserved display. Upon another stone pedestal rested several remarkable specimens suspended within transparent preservation blocks. Delicate mushrooms of many different shapes and sizes appeared frozen in time. Some possessed broad caps. Others resembled shelves growing from ancient wood. Several displayed intricate branching structures unlike anything the expedition had previously encountered. Beside them rested carefully preserved sections of decaying logs, each revealing countless fine white threads weaving silently through the wood. Behind the display stood a detailed model of the forest floor. Layers of fallen leaves, branches, roots, stones, and rich dark soil had been carefully reconstructed with remarkable precision. Beneath the surface, an enlarged cutaway revealed an intricate network of fine white strands extending throughout the earth, surrounding roots, fallen timber, and living plants alike. The engineers studied the model with growing curiosity. The hidden network appeared to connect the entire forest. Elias brushed away the remaining dust from the bronze plaque before reading the title, Mushrooms. The name required no explanation. Every member of the expedition recognized them. Some provided food. Others brought sickness or death, that much they already understood. The bronze plaque, however, described something none of them had ever imagined. The mushroom itself represented only a small part of a much larger living organism. Most of its existence remained hidden beneath the forest floor. The fine white threads surrounding the roots of trees formed the true body of the organism. The visible mushroom existed only to reproduce. The expedition quietly studied the great model once more. The white network extended beneath every tree, around every stone, through every fallen log. The exhibit explained that these hidden threads slowly returned dead plants and animals to the soil, releasing their nutrients so that new life could grow. Without them, forests would gradually become buried beneath their own dead. Nothing would truly return to the earth. Life itself depended upon countless unseen organisms quietly performing their work beneath every footstep. The engineers exchanged thoughtful glances. Entire forests survived because of work no one ever witnessed. The mushroom section of the exhibit revealed another remarkable discovery. Many trees formed partnerships with these hidden organisms. The roots of living trees and the underground threads worked together, exchanging water and nutrients in ways that benefited both. The forest was not merely a collection of individual trees. It was an interconnected living community. Each organism depended upon countless others. The expedition stood in thoughtful silence. The lesson extended far beyond the forest itself. Civilizations, settlements, families, knowledge. Perhaps they too survived because of countless unseen connections that no single person could fully appreciate. Elias quietly updated the expedition map, while the other keeper completed the observations of the display. As the expedition prepared to continue, several members looked once more toward the delicate white threads woven beneath the forest model. The greatest part of the living world had remained hidden beneath their feet all along. Only now had they finally learned to see it. The expedition quietly continued beyond the final exhibit until the gallery simply came to an end. Not with another display, not with another chamber, but with an immense wall of shattered stone. The collapse had occurred countless centuries before. Massive blocks of broken stone completely filled the corridor from wall to wall, rising high into the darkness beyond the reach of their lanterns. Fragments of display pedestals protruded from the debris, while pieces of bronze plaques and shattered transparent preservation blocks remained scattered throughout the ancient ruin. Whatever exhibits had once continued beyond this point had been buried beneath the tremendous collapse, long before the expedition had ever begun its journey. No passage remained. The engineers carefully examined the obstruction. Nothing suggested recent movement. Every exposed surface bore the marks of great age. Dust filled every crevice. Small patches of moss clung to the damp stone. Tiny roots had slowly worked their way between fractured blocks wherever faint traces of moisture could be found. Time itself had become part of the collapse. The engineers quietly concluded that the remaining portion of the gallery almost certainly still existed beyond the buried passage. Reaching it, however, would require many workers, proper equipment, and weeks of careful labor. The expedition had neither the manpower nor the time. Elias carefully updated the expedition map while the other keeper completed the final observations for the Nature and Natural Sciences Gallery. As the expedition slowly retraced their steps toward the great circular atrium, the conversation turned naturally toward everything they had discovered. The forest surrounding their settlements no longer seemed quite so ordinary. Sugar had quietly flowed through familiar trees every spring for generations without anyone realizing it. The remarkable plant they had known as the knuckle tree had reclaimed its forgotten name: bamboo. The world had revealed itself to be far larger than anyone had imagined, with useful plants carried across entire oceans by a civilization that had once known every corner of the earth. Even the oldest trees quietly recorded the passing of each year beneath their bark. Ancient ferns had witnessed a world unimaginably older than humanity itself. Hidden beneath every forest floor, unseen networks of living organisms quietly sustained the life above them. The museum had done far more than preserve specimens. It had changed the way the expedition understood the natural world. The familiar shaft of sunlight welcomed the expedition as they emerged once more into the great circular atrium. Their footsteps echoed softly across the vast chamber. As the group crossed the outer edge of the room, one of the engineers paused. Tucked quietly into the curved wall of the atrium, partially hidden within the shadows between two massive columns, stood a narrow iron door. Unlike the monumental entrances surrounding the chamber, this doorway appeared purely functional. Its surface had surrendered almost completely to rust. The heavy hinges remained visible beneath thick layers of corrosion, while flakes of rust rested undisturbed upon the floor below. No decoration marked its purpose. No sign identified what lay beyond. It appeared to have been built for those who maintained the museum rather than those who visited it. The expedition examined the doorway only briefly. There would be time to investigate it another day. Elias carefully marked its location upon the growing map of the museum, while the other keeper recorded its existence for future exploration. Another mystery had quietly revealed itself. With their observations complete, the expedition continued across the immense atrium. The brilliant circle of sunlight slowly gave way once more to shadow. Ahead, another monumental entrance waited silently. Above the doorway, the pale metal sign was barely visible in the darkness. Technology and innovation. The engineers exchanged quiet glances. Until now, the museum had revealed the natural world. Now, it would reveal what humanity had built from it. Together, the expedition crossed the threshold and disappeared into the darkness beyond. The expedition continued into the darkness of technology and innovation. The gallery opened gradually before them, wider than the passage through which they had entered. Their lanterns revealed scattered pedestals, damaged displays, and unfamiliar shapes disappearing into the gloom. Unlike the Nature and Natural Sciences gallery, almost nothing here was immediately recognizable. The engineers slowed. Their lanterns moved from one strange object to another, illuminating fragments of machines whose purposes could not be guessed. Then the light found something enormous. Suspended above the center of the gallery was a long white object. At first, Elias could see only its lower portion. The engineers raised their lanterns, revealing a cylindrical body stretching upward into the darkness. Sections of faded black markings interrupted the pale surface. Smaller shapes projected from its base, while its upper end narrowed until it disappeared beyond the reach of their light. They stepped closer. The object was not the machine itself. It was a model. A carefully constructed representation of something that had once existed at a scale none of them could immediately comprehend. Beside its base stood the small figure of a man. The figure barely reached a fraction of the object's height. For several moments, the expedition simply stared upward. A thick bronze plaque remained mounted beneath the display. Elias carefully cleared the dust. Saturn V. The words meant nothing to them. The explanation beneath them did. The Saturn V had been a machine built to carry human beings away from Earth, The expedition became completely still. Elias continued reading. The enormous vehicle had stood approximately 364 feet tall. The little human figure beside it was not decoration. It showed scale. Several engineers stepped backward and looked again. 364 feet. They understood the measurement perfectly. What they struggled to understand was why anyone would build a machine that large. Then Elias reached the next section of the plaque. The Saturn V had carried humans to the moon. Silence filled the gallery. Several members instinctively looked upward, though nothing but the ancient ceiling waited above them. They knew the moon. Everyone did. It crossed the night sky above their homes. Its phases marked the passage of time. Its pale light illuminated roads, fields, forests, and rivers. It belonged to the heavens. Yet the bronze plaque before them described it as a destination. Human beings had built this machine, climbed inside, left the earth, crossed the darkness between worlds, and walked upon the moon. The engineers crowded closer to the surviving illustrations. One showed the enormous machine rising from the ground upon a column of fire. Another depicted the Earth as a blue sphere suspended against darkness. Another showed a smaller machine descending toward the gray surface of the moon. And beside it stood a human being. The figure was unmistakable. For the first time since entering the museum, no one attempted to explain what they were seeing. There was no familiar mechanism to compare it with. No water wheel or sail. No horse or furnace. No combination of gears or ropes that could bridge the impossible distance described by the plaque. They understood only that it had been done. Elias quietly updated the expedition map while the other keeper recorded what the exhibit revealed. The engineers remained beneath the suspended model. They studied its proportions, its immense size, the tiny human figure beside it, and the images of another world. Nothing within the exhibit gave them knowledge they could immediately use. They could not reproduce the machine. They could not explain how it worked. They could not imagine what forces could lift something so enormous into the sky. But none of that diminished the importance of what they had discovered. For generations, their people had struggled simply to reclaim pieces of the world their ancestors had lost. Now, standing beneath the model of an impossible machine, they learned how far humanity had once climbed. Their ancestors had not merely crossed oceans. They had crossed the space between worlds. And for the first time, the moon above New Alexandria would never look quite so distant again. Before the expedition moved on, the other keeper remained staring at one of the surviving illustrations. Something about the figure standing upon the gray surface of the moon seemed familiar. He turned toward Elias and reminded him of the curious pouch they had recovered shortly after entering the museum. He immediately understood. He removed one of the carefully protected specimen pouches from his equipment and opened it. From within, he withdrew the strange package they had collected from the ruined room near the museum entrance. Its surface was badly faded. Much of the writing had disappeared. The material itself had become brittle with age, and only fragments of the original image remained clearly visible. But one figure had survived. The strange person dressed in a bulky white covering. Until now, no one had understood what it The other keeper carefully held the ancient package beside one of the surviving illustrations. The expedition gathered around him. They compared the figures, the rounded helmet, the enormous covering surrounding the body, the heavy pack upon the back, the thick gloves, the strange boots. The resemblance was unmistakable. The mysterious figure printed upon the package was dressed like the people shown walking upon the moon. For a moment, no one said anything. Then the meaning of the little image finally became clear. It was a moon man. The engineers examined the package again with renewed fascination. Something they had dismissed as an incomprehensible decoration only hours before had suddenly become understandable. The strange white clothing was not ceremonial. It was equipment. Whatever dangers existed beyond the earth had required human beings to completely surround themselves with protective coverings before stepping onto another world. Even more curious was the object depicted beside the moon man. The pale rectangle of food they had been unable to identify when first examining the package. The surviving fragments of lettering now carried new significance. Astronaut. Ice cream snack. The expedition still could not understand why anyone would associate a traveler to the moon with food. Perhaps the package had once contained provisions intended for such journeys. Perhaps it merely celebrated those who had made them. There was no surviving information sufficient to know. Elias carefully returned the fragile package to its protective pouch. But it was no longer simply an unidentified curiosity recovered from the ruins. For the first time, one of the museum's mysteries had been answered by another. The figure upon the package was a traveler beyond the earth. A moon man, an astronaut, and somewhere within the forgotten world that had created both objects, the two had once belonged to the same story. The expedition finally moved away from the Saturn V. Technology and innovation stretched deeper into darkness, and their lanterns soon revealed another enormous model. A long, pale body rested upon sets of wheels, two great wings extended from its sides, with four enormous cylinders hanging beneath them. Near the rounded front, the body rose into a distinctive second level. Tiny human figures stood beside it for scale. Whatever this machine had been, it was enormous. Elias cleared the dust from a bronze plaque, Boeing 747, commercial passenger aircraft. The name meant nothing to them. The surviving illustrations did. One showed the 747 racing along a wide prepared strip of ground. Another showed it rising into the sky. A third showed it surrounded by clouds. The expedition fell silent. It flew. The engineers crowded around the model. They understood birds. They understood sails catching moving air. But nothing they knew explained how something this enormous could possibly leave the ground. The plaque described the 747 as more than 200 feet long, with wings stretching roughly 200 feet across. Then came its speed, more than 500 miles per hour. The engineers understood the number perfectly that made it astonishing. 500 miles by horse or wagon could require many days. The 747 could travel farther than that in a single hour. One engineer noticed rows of tiny openings running along both sides. Their purpose became clear at the next display. Another model of the 747 had been opened along one side, revealing its interior. Rows upon rows of seats filled the long body. Narrow passages ran between them. Compartments occupied the space above. Beneath the passenger floor stretched another chamber for baggage and cargo. Near the front, a staircase climbed into the distinctive raised upper section. More seats waited there. The engineers looked back toward the complete model. The tiny openings were windows. There had been people sitting behind them, hundreds of them. Surviving illustrations showed ordinary people entering a 747. Men, women, and children. Families carrying bags. They were not soldiers. They were not explorers. They were travelers. Hundreds of people had eaten, slept, and walked through this machine while it carried them high above the earth. The Saturn V had carried a handful of humans toward the moon. The 747 carried hundreds of ordinary people across the world. Flight had become ordinary. Elias updated the expedition map while the other keeper recorded what they had learned. The engineers remained around the cutaway model. They could see where the passengers sat. They could see where their belongings were carried. But nothing answered the most important question. How did the 747 fly? Their attention shifted toward another display. This one was nearly large enough to enter. Several seats faced wide windows. Before them stretched a wall crowded with gauges, levers, switches, and unfamiliar controls. One engineer slowly raised his lantern. They had found the place from which the 747 had been controlled. For several moments, no one moved. Then the engineer stepped closer. The display reproduced the front of the 747 almost at full size. They carefully entered through the open side. Several seats faced forward toward wide windows. Before them stretched an overwhelming collection of instruments, round gauges and levers, switches, handles, and small lights. Rows of markings whose purposes could not be determined. Controls covered the space before the seats, between them, and even above them. The engineers slowly moved their lanterns across the bewildering arrangement. This was where human beings had controlled the 747. Individual pieces seemed almost understandable. A lever could move something, a gauge could measure something, a switch could change something. But hundreds of such devices surrounded the seats. Every instrument appeared to have a purpose. Every control belonged to a larger system. The engineers could recognize the language of machinery without understanding what the machine was saying. One sat carefully in a seat and looked through the forward windows. For a moment he imagined the view that had once existed beyond them. No road, no horses, no ground at all, only sky. He slowly stood again. None of them attempted to touch the controls. Another display waited nearby. One of the enormous cylinders from beneath the wings had been reproduced and cut open from front to rear. The engineers immediately gathered around it. A great circular fan filled the front. Behind it stretched layer after layer of precisely shaped blades arranged around a central shaft. Farther inside were rings, chambers, tubes, and structures packed together with extraordinary precision. The engineers raised their lanterns and examined every visible surface. They understood shafts, they understood rotating blades, they understood that the pieces had been carefully shaped for a reason. But understanding the individual parts brought them no closer to understanding the whole. Whatever happened inside this machine had somehow helped lift the 747 into the sky and drive it forward at more than 500 miles per hour. How remained a mystery. One engineer crouched beside the exposed model for several minutes. He traced the path through the machine without touching it. Air entered through the enormous opening at the front. That much seemed obvious. What happened afterward became increasingly difficult to follow. There were too many stages, too many precisely shaped parts, too many unfamiliar components. Eventually, he stepped back. The first civilization had not achieved flight through a single forgotten secret. It had required thousands of pieces of knowledge working together. The final portion of the exhibit contained a large map of the world. Countless curved lines crossed oceans and continents. At first, Elias thought they might represent borders or roads. The plaque explained otherwise. They were air routes. The expedition stared at the map. The lines connected distant cities across nearly every inhabited part of the Earth. Some crossed entire continents. Others stretched across oceans. The 747 had traveled these routes carrying hundreds of people at a time. Not once. Not as some legendary expedition. Again and again. Day after day. The bamboo exhibit had shown them how enormous the world was. Now they understood how small the first civilization had made it. A journey that might consume months of their lives had once required only hours. Oceans had become distances crossed between sunrise and sunset. People separated by thousands of miles could meet, conduct their business, and return home without treating the journey as an expedition. Elias updated the map while the other keeper finished recording the exhibit. The engineers took one final look toward the cutaway engine. They had learned almost nothing about how to build such a machine. Yet they had learned something perhaps more important. It was possible. Human beings had done it. The Saturn V had shown them that humanity could reach another world. The 747 showed them what happened when something once impossible became ordinary. For the people who built this museum, flying above the clouds at more than 500 miles per hour had simply become transportation. The expedition gathered their equipment and continued deeper into technology and innovation. Behind them, the models of the 747 disappeared into darkness ahead. Their lanterns revealed another display built around a broad black panel tilted toward a painted representation of the sun. The panel appeared simple compared with the impossible machines they had just examined. It had no wheels, no shafts, no sails, no visible moving parts. Beside it stood models of homes, workshops, distant settlements, and machines connected by thin lines to larger fields of identical panels. A thick bronze plaque rested beneath the display. Elias brushed away the dust. Solar power. The expedition understood both words separately. Together, they suggested something none of them had considered possible. The plaque explained that these panels gathered energy from sunlight and transformed it into usable power. No fuel was burned, no wind was required, no river needed to turn a wheel. The panels simply faced the sun. The engineers studied the display in silence. Sunlight provided warmth. It dried crops and clothing. It guided the seasons and sustained every field and forest. They had never imagined that light itself could be captured and made to perform work. Surviving illustrations showed enormous fields covered with thousands of panels. Others showed panels attached to rooftops, vehicles, remote buildings, and machines traveling beyond the Earth. The plaque described power being produced wherever sufficient sunlight reached the surface. The method remained completely beyond them. They found no furnace, no hidden wheel. Nothing that explained how light became useful force, yet the museum stated plainly that it had been done. Near the edge of the display rested a small glass bulb mounted upon a damaged stand. Inside were 4 thin paddles arranged around a delicate central spindle. Each paddle appeared dark upon one side and pale upon the other. The object resembled no instrument the expedition recognized. Most of the lettering beneath it had been lost, leaving only fragments explaining that the device responded to light. The engineers examined it closely. The paddles remained motionless. The gallery was too dim for the exhibit to demonstrate whatever purpose it had once served. Elias carefully lifted the glass object from its weakened mount. It was light enough to carry, yet fragile enough that even a small impact might destroy it. After the engineers confirmed that removing it would not damage the surrounding display, Elias wrapped it in cloth and placed it securely inside a specimen pouch. Perhaps better light would reveal something the darkness concealed. The expedition returned its attention to the surviving diagrams. One illustration showed sunlight striking a panel. Another showed the same panel connected to a turning machine. The precise steps between the two had been lost within unfamiliar symbols, ruined labels, and concepts no one present understood. Still, the meaning was unmistakable. Somehow, sunlight could be transformed into mechanical power. The engineers began discussing the implications. A settlement no longer dependent upon flowing water. A workshop operating without charcoal. A machine drawing strength from the sky whenever the sun appeared. None believed they could reproduce the process. Not yet. Perhaps not within their lifetimes. But the possibility now existed within their understanding. Elias updated the expedition map while the other keeper recorded the surviving information. The engineers remained before the dark panels for several moments longer. The Saturn V had shown that humanity could reach the moon. The 747 had shown that machines could carry entire crowds through the sky. This exhibit revealed something quieter, but no less extraordinary. The first civilization had learned to gather power from sunlight itself. They did not understand how. They only understood that the sun could provide more than heat and life. It could make machines move. With the small glass device secured inside Elias's pouch, the expedition gathered its equipment and continued toward the next surviving display. The expedition continued beyond the solar display. The small glass device remained wrapped inside Elias's specimen pouch. Farther into the gallery, their lanterns revealed another surviving exhibit. This one appeared less spectacular than the machines that had carried people through the sky or gathered power from sunlight. Several enlarged models of strange branching forms stood behind a broad display table. Nearby were illustrations of wounded skin, infected tissue, and tiny organisms shown at impossible magnification. The engineers slowed. The other keeper moved closer to the bronze plaque while Elias marked the exhibit upon his map. The title read, Antibiotics. The word was unfamiliar. The explanation beneath it was not. The plaque described medicines capable of stopping certain infections caused by organisms too small for human eyes to see. Before their discovery, a minor wound could become swollen, fevered, and deadly. An infected tooth could kill. A cut received while farming could end a life. Women could survive childbirth only to die days later from infection. Diseases that spread through armies and settlements could overwhelm entire populations. The expedition understood those dangers immediately. They had witnessed them all. The exhibit explained that antibiotics did not simply ease pain or reduce fever. They acted against the unseen organisms responsible for many infections. Some destroyed them. Others prevented them from growing long enough for the human body to recover. The surviving illustrations showed the same infected wound across several days. In the first sequence, redness spread outward until the surrounding tissue darkened. In the second, treatment began early. The swelling diminished. The wound closed. The patient lived. Several members of the expedition remained fixed upon the comparison. The difference was not comfort. It was survival. Another section described the discovery of penicillin. A common mold had produced a substance that prevented nearby bacteria from growing. The first civilization had learned to isolate that substance, purify it, and manufacture it in enormous quantities. The expedition recognized mold. They had seen it ruin bread, fruit, grain, and stored food. Now the museum revealed that one kind had helped humanity defeat infections that had killed people since the beginning of history. The engineers studied the diagrams, but the process quickly exceeded their understanding. Controlled growth, purification, precise measurement, sterile equipment, carefully timed production. The knowledge required far more than simply collecting mold from spoiled food. The plaque warned that using the wrong substance, an impure preparation, or an incorrect amount could cause harm rather than healing. The exhibit also carried another warning. Antibiotics did not work against every illness. They could not cure infections caused by viruses. Improper use allowed surviving bacteria to become resistant, leaving future medicines less effective. The expedition had discovered no simple miracle. They had found proof that deadly infections could be defeated, but only through knowledge, precision, and restraint. That realization made the loss feel heavier. Countless people in their world still died from wounds and illnesses the first civilization had once learned to treat. The answer had existed. The method had simply been buried with the civilization that created it. Elias completed the map while the other keeper recorded every surviving detail. The engineers copied the visible diagrams, even those they could not interpret. No one expected to manufacture antibiotics from what little the exhibit provided. The process remained far beyond their equipment and understanding. Still, the discovery mattered. Infection was not an unavoidable punishment. It was caused by living organisms. Those organisms could be stopped. Perhaps not by this expedition. Perhaps not within Elias's lifetime. But someday, another generation might possess enough knowledge to finish what the museum had begun teaching them. The expedition gathered its lanterns and continued deeper into technology and innovation. Behind them, the bronze plaque remained in the darkness, preserving the memory of a time when a simple wound no longer had to become a death sentence. The expedition continued deeper into technology and innovation. The twisted model of life's hidden instructions faded behind them as their lanterns revealed the next surviving exhibit. At its center stood a large globe mounted upon a stone pedestal. Several small objects circled above it on thin metal supports, each positioned at a different height and angle. Fine lines descended from them towards ships, wagons, aircraft, and human figures scattered across the surface below. Beside the globe rested maps covered with numbered grids and symbols marking exact locations. A bronze plaque beneath the display identified the system: Global Positioning System. The words were familiar individually. Together, they described something extraordinary. The plaque explained that machines traveling high above the Earth continuously sent signals toward the surface. Small receiving devices compared those signals and determined their own location almost anywhere in the world. The result could be accurate within only a few feet. The expedition stared at the globe. They understood maps. They understood landmarks, distance, direction, and careful surveying. They understood how easily travelers could become lost when storms concealed the sun and stars, or when unfamiliar terrain offered no recognizable guide. The first civilization had carried a device that simply revealed where its owner stood. Surviving illustrations showed the system guiding ships across oceans, aircraft through clouds, wagons along distant roads, and travelers through unfamiliar cities. Farmers used it to follow precise paths across fields, surveyors measured land, rescue workers located people in danger. The system could guide someone toward a destination thousands of miles away while continually correcting the route as they moved. One illustration showed a traveler holding a device small enough to fit within one hand. A bright symbol marked his exact position upon a detailed map. Every road around him was visible. Every turn ahead was known. The distance remaining was calculated automatically. The expedition understood the result. The method remained incomprehensible. The engineers examined the objects suspended around the globe. The plaque identified them as satellites. They were machines placed far above the Earth, beyond the height of any mountain and beyond the air through which birds or the 747 traveled. They moved continually around the world without falling back to the ground. Dozens worked together so that several remained visible from almost any location. The expedition had only just learned that humans once reached the moon. Now they discovered that humanity had filled the space surrounding Earth with machines. These machines watched storms, carried messages, and helped people determine their position. The world had not merely been mapped. It had been surrounded by instruments that made the map available everywhere. Studied the maps with particular interest. His own work depended upon observation, measurement, and careful judgment. Every observation entered the growing map only after he established its direction in relationship to the rooms already explored. The global positioning system would have performed part of that work instantly. A traveler could cross an unknown wilderness without losing his location. A ship could sail beyond sight of land and still know precisely where it traveled. An expedition could record the exact position of a ruin, so that others might return years later without searching. The value of such knowledge required no explanation, yet nothing within the display offered a path toward recreating it. The system depended upon machines beyond the Earth, unseen signals and forms of calculation far beyond their instruments. It was not a single invention. It was an entire structure surrounding the world. Elias updated the expedition map while the other keeper recorded the surviving information. The engineers copied the arrangement of the satellites and the paths shown around the globe, though none understood what kept them above the Earth or how their signals traveled. The exhibit taught them no method they could use. It gave them a new measure of precision. Their ancestors had once known their position anywhere upon the planet within only a few feet. No landmark was required. No familiar road, no clear sky, no visible shore. Humanity had built a system that prevented the world from becoming unknown. The expedition gathered its lanterns and continued onward.
small machines remained suspended around the globe, silently representing a time when nearly every place on Earth could be found.
The expedition continued beyond the Global Positioning System exhibit. The surviving displays became sparse as the gallery narrowed. Broken models, empty pedestals, and corroded fragments lay beneath centuries of dust. Ahead, the stone floor had collapsed into the level below. The opening stretched across most of the passage, leaving only a narrow ledge beside one wall. More exhibits remained visible beyond it, but the depth of the hole could not be determined. The engineers lowered a lantern from the bamboo pole. Its light revealed broken stone, exposed iron bars, and hanging fragments of floor before fading into darkness. The ledge appeared wide enough for one person. The engineers tightened the rope attached to the ring at Elias's back. 3 men took firm positions behind him while another fed the line forward. Elias removed his pack and carried only a lantern and his mapping materials. He stepped onto the ledge. The stone held. He moved sideways with one hand against the wall, testing every placement before shifting his weight. Halfway across, the ledge broke beneath him. Elias dropped into the opening as the rope snapped tight. The engineers hauled backward together, stopping his fall after several feet. He hung against the fractured edge while broken stone vanished into the darkness below. His lantern swung beneath him. As it slowed, the darkness revealed a floor. The collapse had opened into a hidden room beneath the gallery. Rows of metal shelving stood under layers of dust. Closed cabinets lined the walls. Heavy work tables held small cases and unfamiliar instruments. Narrow containers had been arranged in careful rows, while sealed drawers occupied much of the surrounding storage space. The room had not been intended for visitors. It appeared to be a storage and preparation area used by those who maintained the museum. Much of it remained protected beneath the surviving floor. Elias could identify no safe route downward. The shelves were beyond reach, and the condition of the lower floor remained unknown. Still, the chamber appeared largely intact. He fixed its position in his memory before calling for the engineers to pull him back. The rope tightened. Elias found purchase against the wall and was hauled safely onto solid stone. No one suggested another attempt. Large warning triangles and arrows were drawn on the nearby wall in thick white chalk. Elias added the collapse in the hidden room to his map, while the other keeper recorded what little could be observed from above. Another expedition would return with ladders, stronger ropes, and equipment suited for descending safely. For now, whatever had survived below would remain untouched. The group rested while Elias replaced his pack. The leather straps settled heavily across his shoulders, and the safety rope was checked again before they began retracing their route. They passed the suspended satellites of the Global Positioning System, the twisted model of life's hidden instructions, the exhibit describing medicines that defeated infection, the dark panels that gathered power from sunlight, the exposed machinery of the 747, and the Saturn V rising toward the moon. None of those wonders could yet be recreated. Most could barely be understood. But the expedition now knew they had once existed. Humanity had crossed the world through the sky, surrounded the Earth with machines, altered the hidden instructions of life, defeated infections, gathered power from sunlight, and walked upon the moon. The methods had been lost. The possibilities had not. Ahead,
The distant glow of the atrium appeared through the darkness. Morning sunlight still descended into its center. After hours beneath lantern light, the bright circle seemed almost welcoming. The expedition continued toward it, unaware that one of the smallest objects Elias carried was about to reveal its first secret.
The expedition emerged from technology and innovation and returned to the great circular atrium. Afternoon sunlight now descended through the unseen skylight, filling the center of the chamber with brilliant golden light. After hours beneath lantern glow, the brightness seemed almost overwhelming. The group crossed into the sunbeam and lowered their packs beside the sturdy stone pedestals. Several members sat to rest. Others checked lanterns, straps, and tools, while Elias briefly reviewed the route he had added to the expedition map. One of the engineers remembered the small glass device collected from the solar power exhibit. He asked Elias to remove it from the specimen pouch so it could be examined under stronger light. Elias carefully opened the pouch. The device remained wrapped in cloth exactly as he had packed it. He lifted it free and passed it to the engineer. The glass bulb was small enough to hold comfortably in both hands. Inside, 4 delicate paddles surrounded a narrow central spindle. Each paddle appeared dark on one side and pale on the other. In the dim gallery, they had remained completely motionless. The engineer carried the device into the brightest part of the sunbeam. For several moments, nothing happened. Then one paddle moved, only slightly. The engineer held the bulb still. Another paddle followed. Slowly, the entire assembly began to turn. The expedition gathered around him. The paddles rotated faster as the direct sunlight passed through the glass. There was no visible spring, no flowing water, no wind inside the sealed bulb. Nothing touched the mechanism, yet it continued to spin. The engineer moved the device into shadow. The paddles slowed. Their motion weakened until they stopped completely. He returned it to the sunlight. After a brief delay, the paddles began turning again. He repeated the test. Sunlight, motion, shadow, stillness. Each attempt produced the same result. The group watched in complete silence. The solar exhibit had claimed that sunlight could be transformed into useful power. Now, for the first time, they possessed something that demonstrated the idea directly. The engineers examined the bulb from every angle. They searched for hidden openings, threads, springs, or shifting weights. They found none. The object remained sealed. The only reliable conclusion was that direct sunlight caused the paddles to move. How it did so remained entirely unknown. The device did not explain the dark panels from the solar exhibit. It offered no method for building a workshop powered by sunlight. It revealed no secret mechanism that could be copied. It proved only that light could produce motion. That alone was enough. One engineer held the bulb higher within the sunbeam. The paddles accelerated again, turning silently inside the glass. Around them stood the broken curiosities of the atrium. Above them waited an opening too distant to see clearly. Within the engineer's hands, sunlight had become movement. Elias updated the expedition map while the other keeper recorded the repeated tests and their result. No explanation was added. There was none to give.
The small device was wrapped once more and returned to Elias's pouch. It would be carried back to the expedition headquarters for careful study. Perhaps future engineers would uncover its method. Perhaps generations would pass before anyone understood it. For now, the discovery remained simple. Direct sunlight entered the glass. The paddles turned. And for the first time, the expedition had watched the sun make a machine move.
After completing their examination of the spinning glass device, the expedition gathered its equipment and prepared to leave the atrium. Packs settled once more onto tired shoulders. Lanterns were checked. The safety rope remained secured to the ring at Elias's back. Together, the expedition retraced its route through the immense hallway and returned to the main entrance lobby. The lobby appeared different now. When they had first entered, it had seemed like little more than a ruined chamber beyond the collapsed entrance. After exploring the atrium and its galleries, they now understood it as the beginning of a much larger structure. Elias paused to study the map. Much of the lobby perimeter remained unexamined. The expedition divided its attention across the shadowed walls, moving slowly from one side of the room to the other while the engineers inspected the floor and surrounding stone for damage. Broken counters, empty recesses, fragments of metal frames, scattered remains of objects too degraded to identify. Then one engineer raised his lantern toward a distant section of wall. Another large doorway stood partially concealed beyond fallen debris. The passage beyond remained open. It was wider than the hallway leading to the galleries and showed less structural damage than many areas they had already crossed. The expedition entered cautiously. Their lanterns revealed a broad hall lined with numerous open stalls and recessed chambers. Stone counters stretched across many of the openings. Behind them stood rusted frames, collapsed shelving, broken pipes, and the remains of equipment whose purpose could not be determined. Small tables had once filled the central space. Most had fallen apart. Only metal supports and scattered fragments remained. The floor was covered with shattered containers, corroded trays, and countless remnants of objects that had once been used and discarded. The room appeared to have served many people at once. Several different stalls had been arranged around the perimeter, each separated from the next and each possessing its own counters and equipment. Yet none resembled a workshop. No raw materials remained. No storage suggested long-term production. The arrangement seemed designed for rapid service and constant movement. Whatever had happened here, it had once drawn crowds. The expedition could not determine its purpose. They only understood that visitors had gathered, waited, and consumed something within the immense shared chamber. Elias marked the room on his map, while the other keeper recorded the surviving arrangement. Several additional halls branched away from the chamber. Unlike the concealed service door in the atrium, these passages appeared intended for visitors. Their entrances were broad. Some still bore metal signs above them. Others disappeared into darkness beneath damaged frames and fallen material. The engineers raised the lantern pole beneath the nearest surviving sign. Large metal letters gradually emerged from the gloom. Planetarium. The word meant nothing to them. No explanation survived nearby.
Beyond the entrance waited a descending corridor, wider than an ordinary passage and dark enough that their lanterns revealed only the nearest portion. Faded markings covered the walls. Metal railings followed the downward slope. Whatever attraction had once existed beyond it appeared to have accommodated large numbers of visitors. The expedition did not enter immediately. Other halls waited around the chamber. Each might lead to another gallery, theater, or attraction whose purpose had been lost. The building continued to reveal itself as something larger than a museum of objects. It had been designed for crowds, for movement, for learning, for entertainment. The first civilization had not merely stored knowledge here. It had invited ordinary people to experience it. Elias added the newly discovered passages to the map. The other keeper recorded the strange arrangement of counters, tables, and branching halls. Above one of those passages, the surviving letters remained visible. Planetarium. Another forgotten word. Another doorway waiting in darkness. The expedition gathered beneath it, preparing to discover what kind of place had once drawn crowds deep into the building.
The expedition stood beneath the metal sign for several moments. Planetarium. The unfamiliar word offered little explanation, but faded images along the descending passage showed stars, planets, and curved paths across the heavens. The group entered cautiously. The corridor sloped downward between metal railings before opening into a vast circular chamber. Rows of seats descended toward the center, all facing inward beneath a great domed ceiling. Most of the seats had collapsed. Dust covered the floor. Fragments of plaster and broken equipment lay scattered between the rows. At the center stood a strange machine supported upon a heavy base. The machine appeared to have been built from several rounded sections joined around a central frame. Numerous small lenses covered its surface, each aimed toward a different part of the dome. Metal arms, gears, and circular tracks surrounded the structure. Much had rusted into place. Several sections were missing entirely. The engineers gathered around it. Unlike the machines displayed in technology and innovation, this device appeared intended to remain stationary. Its purpose was hidden somewhere within the countless lenses pointed upward. Elias marked the chamber on his map while the other keeper examined a surviving bronze plaque near the central base. The plaque explained that the planetarium had recreated the night sky upon the dome above, stars, planets, and constellations. The changing heavens could once be displayed inside this room. The engineers inspected the machine more closely. A damaged access panel hung open near its center. Behind it lay an enclosed chamber blackened by old heat-reflective surfaces and glass lenses. Surrounded an empty mounting where a powerful source of light had once been placed. The intended light no longer existed. Their lanterns did. One engineer carefully cleaned the lens and removed a lantern from its hook and held it near the opening. A faint point of light appeared upon the dome. The entire expedition looked upward. The engineer adjusted the lantern and its flame. Another point emerged. Then several more. The engineers began working with growing excitement. They opened additional panels and positioned several lanterns within surviving light chambers.
cloth was wrapped around loose fittings to hold them steady while keeping the hot metal away from the damaged machine. At first, the chamber remained too bright to reveal the result. One by one, the expedition extinguished every lantern not placed inside the machine. Darkness swallowed the rows of seats. Only the hidden flames remained. For several moments, nothing changed. Then the first pale stars appeared upon the dome.
Pale points of light spread across the curved ceiling. Dozens appeared at first, then hundreds. Some were sharp, others blurred through cracked lenses. Entire regions remained dark where sections of the machine had failed, while the surviving lenses cast broken constellations across the dome. A dim band of light stretched through one portion of the artificial sky. The image flickered gently whenever a lantern flame moved. The machine had not fully awakened. It remembered only fragments of the heavens. The expedition slowly took seats among the surviving rows. For several minutes, no one attempted to study the mechanism. They simply looked upward. They all knew the night sky. They had navigated beneath it, measured seasons by it, watched the moon cross it. But this was different. The people of the first civilization had built a machine capable of carrying the sky indoors. The bronze plaque identified patterns among the stars and described worlds moving around the sun. Much of the information remained beyond them, but the purpose of the chamber was clear. Visitors had once gathered here to learn the structure of the heavens, not beneath the real sky, but beneath one made from light. One engineer gently turned part of the surviving mechanism by hand. The projected stars shifted slightly across the dome. Some disappeared. Others emerged from darkness. The movement was uneven and incomplete, but it proved that the artificial sky had once changed with the seasons and the passage of time. The engineers studied the gears and circular tracks surrounding the projector. Each movement of the mechanism altered the heavens above them. They could not understand the complete machine, but its purpose was no longer hidden. It had reproduced the motion of the sky. Elias looked from the dome toward the central projector. Humanity had not been content merely to observe the heavens. It had mapped them, measured them, recreated them. The Saturn V had shown that people once traveled beyond Earth. The planetarium revealed how carefully they had studied the darkness through which they traveled. For a brief time, the expedition remained seated beneath the damaged constellations. The false stars were dim and incomplete. Yet even in their broken state, they transformed the ruined chamber into something vast. The dome no longer seemed like a ceiling. It appeared to open into the night. The engineers eventually removed the lanterns before their heat could damage the surviving lenses. The artificial stars faded one by one. Constellations vanished. The pale band across the dome weakened and disappeared. Soon, only darkness remained above them. For a brief time, the broken machine had remembered the sky. Elias completed the map while the other keeper recorded the method used to awaken the surviving projection. Future expeditions would return with cooler lamps, stronger supports, and more time to study the mechanism.
The group relit their lanterns and prepared to leave the chamber. Behind them, the great dome disappeared into darkness. But none of them would forget the moment when the heavens appeared above their heads, inside a room.
The expedition eventually returned through the descending passage and emerged once more into the broad ruined chamber beyond. The unfamiliar gathering place remained difficult to understand. For now, Elias marked it only as a meeting hall connecting several attractions. The planetarium entrance remained behind them, its metal letters disappearing into darkness as the expedition continued around the chamber's perimeter. Another broad doorway waited along the opposite wall. Unlike the descending passage they had just explored, this entrance opened into a level corridor. A surviving sign hung above it: Electricity Theater. The second word was familiar. A theater was a place where people gathered to watch a performance. The first meant nothing to them. Elias studied the letters while the other keeper recorded the name. The engineers raised their lanterns toward faded images surrounding the entrance. Brilliant branching lines crossed a dark background. Some appeared to leap between tall metal towers, others surrounded the shape of a standing human figure without touching the body inside. One damaged image showed a person enclosed within a cage while white fire struck the metal bars around them. The expedition remained at the entrance longer than they had before entering the planetarium. The images suggested danger. They knew fire, they knew lightning, they knew the destructive force released when the sky struck the earth. Yet the people shown in the surviving images did not appear to be fleeing. They stood beside the artificial lightning. They watched it, controlled it, presented it to an audience. That possibility was more troubling than the images themselves. The engineers examined the floor and doorway for signs of collapse before allowing the group to proceed. Beyond the entrance, the corridor widened into a waiting area. Metal railings formed several narrow lines leading toward a second set of doors. Faded warning symbols remained visible upon the walls, along with diagrams showing hands kept away from exposed equipment. Several signs had lost their painted words, but the repeated shapes of lightning bolts survived. Elias added the corridor to his map. The other keeper recorded the warnings without attempting to interpret them. The inner door stood partly open. One had fallen from its hinges and rested against the wall. Beyond them lay another large chamber. Rows of fixed seats rose in tiers around a broad demonstration floor. Unlike the planetarium, every seat faced forward. The far side of the room was dominated by machinery. Two tall metal structures rose toward the ceiling, each crowned by a wide circular ring. Heavy cables hung between them. Raised platforms stood across the floor. Metal rods, cages, and control panels surrounded a central stage. Much of the equipment had corroded, but the arrangement remained deliberate. This had not been a workshop. It had been a place where machines were operated before an audience. The expedition entered slowly. Their lanterns revealed blackened marks across the walls and ceiling. Some formed long branching scars. Others surrounded metal points where tremendous heat had once struck. A large cage stood near the center of the demonstration floor. Its bars were closely spaced and joined to a heavy metal base. Inside was a small platform large enough for a person to stand upon. One engineer approached it cautiously. The faded image outside had shown a human figure standing within a similar enclosure while lightning surrounded them. Whatever electricity had been, the cage had somehow protected the person inside. The machine had allowed the people of the first civilization to stand within lightning and remain unharmed. Elias looked toward the tall ring towers at the far side of the theater. The
the planetarium had recreated the heavens with light. This chamber appeared to have recreated the violence of storms.
The other expedition members remained near the entrance. No one approached the machinery. Blackened scars crossed the walls and ceiling like lightning marks. Some ended at metal rods above the floor. Others spread from the two great towers at the rear of the chamber. Whatever force had moved through this room had carried enough heat to burn stone and metal. Elias instructed the group to remain close. Two engineers waited near the entrance while the others descended, testing each step before trusting it. Dust shifted beneath their boots. Loose plaster slid down the aisles and struck the seats below. Every sound returned from the walls. A low barrier separated the audience from the machinery. Small signs carried the same branching symbols seen in the corridor. They did not understand electricity, but the warning was clear. Do not approach carelessly. One engineer extended a wooden pole across the barrier and touched the nearest platform. Nothing happened. After several tests, they stepped onto the floor. They avoided every cable. Some lay loose across the stone, others vanished beneath the machinery. Their coverings had split, revealing dark strands. None were touched. The two towers dominated the chamber. Each rose from a broad base filled with tightly wound metal. Narrow columns climbed toward enormous circular rings facing one another across an open space. Nearby rods ended in forks, needles, and polished spheres. The shape suggested the builders had formed the metal to guide artificial lightning. Elias added the structures to his map while the other keeper examined the plaques. One identified the towers as Tesla coils, another described high voltage and electrical discharge. The words survived. Their meaning did not. Near the center of the stage stood the metal cage shown in the faded image outside. Its door remained partly open. The bars were joined at many points and connected to a broad metal base. A thick metal path extended from the cage into the floor. Nothing about it resembled a prison. Whoever entered had done so willingly. One engineer pushed the door wider with the wooden pole. Its hinges released a long metallic groan. The entire expedition froze. No hidden mechanism moved. The engineer stepped inside only briefly. The cage offered no obvious protection, yet surviving images showed artificial lightning striking its bars while a person stood safely within. The lightning must have traveled through the cage rather than through the person. They could record the observation. They could not explain it. Across the stage stood another platform supported by thick, pale blocks unlike wood, stone, or ordinary metal. Ruined gloves and shoes rested nearby. The material had hardened with age but had once been flexible. Warning diagrams showed a person standing upon the platform while keeping clear of the equipment. Even those who understood electricity had treated it with caution. At the rear, a long metal desk faced the machinery. Rows of switches, handles, gauges, and dark windows covered its surface. Labels described charge, current, voltage, and emergency shutdown. The controls were recorded and left untouched. One engineer found a large separate lever. He marked the floor beneath it with a broad white warning triangle. The same mark was placed beside the cables, towers, and cage. From a small observation window behind the stage, the arrangement became clear. The audience had watched from a safe distance. Operators had controlled the machinery from behind barriers. A person could enter the cage while the towers produced artificial lightning around them. The room had provided both learning and performance. Knowledge made spectacular enough to fill every seat. The expedition returned to the demonstration floor without touching a control.
They had entered expecting a machine that commanded storms. Instead, they found something more disciplined. The people of the first civilization had learned to create an unimaginably dangerous force, guide its path, and stand beside it without being destroyed. Elias looked once more toward the silent towers. The machines appeared dead. No one trusted them enough to assume they were harmless. The expedition withdrew carefully, leaving every lever, cable, and metal door exactly as they had found it.
The expedition returned to the broad ruined chamber beyond the theater. Between Elias's fall in technology and innovation and the dangers revealed inside the electricity theater, no one argued for continuing deeper into the museum. They had entered successfully. They had mapped several major chambers. They had recorded surviving exhibits and recovered new words from the first civilization. They had also found unstable floors, collapsed passages, and machines built to command forces they did not understand. The first expedition had achieved enough. Before leaving, they completed the perimeter of the unknown chamber. The expedition moved carefully from wall to wall while Elias extended the map and the other keeper recorded each passage. Most of the remaining doorways offered nothing new. One opened into a corridor buried beneath a complete ceiling collapse. Another descended only a short distance before shattered stone and twisted metal blocked the way. A broad hall had partially folded inward, leaving the floor tilted beneath tons of debris. Several smaller doors led into storage rooms stripped by age, water, and decay. The engineers examined every obstruction from a safe distance. None could be cleared without tools, supports, and a dedicated work crew. Broad white warning marks were drawn beside the worst collapses. Elias added every blocked route to the map. The other keeper recorded the condition of the surrounding walls, floors, and ceilings. Nothing else demanded immediate investigation. No surviving exhibit waited beyond the visible doorways. No additional plaque offered another branch of knowledge. The unexplored sections would remain for later expeditions. The team gathered near the passage leading back toward the museum entrance. Their packs felt heavier than when they had entered, though they carried little more than notes, drawings, and a few carefully selected objects. The true weight came from what they had seen. A machine that carried people to the moon. A chamber that brought the stars indoors. Artificial lighting control before an audience. Plants, materials, and inventions from across a world greater than any of them had imagined. The museum had not given them answers to everything. It had shown them how much there was left to learn. Elias looked once more across the unidentified hall. Its collapsed corridors and sealed doorways promised further discoveries, but none were worth risking another life before the expedition returned with better preparation. He closed the map book's leather case. The first survey was complete. The 7 men began the long walk out. The expedition followed the mapped route toward the museum entrance. They passed through the broad interior halls and beneath ceilings that vanished beyond their lantern light. Their steps carried them past the ruined room behind the fallen machine. The faded astronaut still watched from the preserved food pouch among the debris. Hours earlier, the image had been only another mystery. Now they understood that the figure represented a person who had traveled beyond Earth. The museum had given meaning to something that at first appeared meaningless. The long long interior shadows had deepened. Lantern light now reached farther than the weak evening glow entering through the broken front of the building. The expedition slowed as it approached the entrance. One by one, they walked through the doorway. The engineers emerged first and inspected the exterior before signaling the others forward. Elias followed with the map secured to his hip. The second keeper came after him, protecting the day's notes from broken stone and exposed metal. At last, all 7 members of the expedition stepped outside. The sun had fallen low above the ruined city. Golden light stretched between the ancient buildings and touched the upper walls of the museum. The heat of the day had begun to weaken. Long shadows covered the street. For several moments, the expedition simply stood in the open air. After a day beneath stone, glass, and darkness, the evening sky seemed impossibly wide. Then they noticed the crowd. Hundreds of people waited beyond the secured perimeter. Workers had stopped hauling timber and clearing debris. Engineers, keepers, guards, laborers, and families filled the street and nearby open ground. Some stood upon wagons to see over the others. Children sat upon shoulders. Lanterns had already been lit among the gathering crowd. No one had known what the expedition would find inside. As the hours passed, uncertainty had spread through the settlement. They had watched the team enter the enormous ruin that morning. They had seen the daylight fade without seeing them return. Now every face turned toward the 7 figures emerging from the museum. The crowd searched them for signs of injury. They saw dust-covered clothing, scraped equipment, a rope stained from hard use. They saw exhaustion, but they also saw that all 7 had returned. The silence broke slowly. Relief moved through the crowd in murmurs, then cheers, then a rising wave of voices that filled the street. Elias looked back toward the broken entrance. Behind it waited the artificial sky of the planetarium, the silent towers of the electricity theater, the machines of technology and innovation, the exhibits of nature and natural sciences. Entire wings remained buried, collapsed, or unexplored. The museum had not surrendered all of its knowledge. It had only opened the first door. Elias turned toward the waiting settlement. The first expedition into the Museum of Science was complete. Every person who had entered had returned alive, and they had brought the beginning of its knowledge back with them. The cloud pressed closer as the expedition crossed the secured perimeter. Questions came from every direction. What had they found? Were there machines inside? Had the building been a palace, a temple, or a fortress? Had the first civilization left instructions? Could any of its knowledge still be used? The 7 men tried to answer, but every response created several more questions. There were too many discoveries, too many unfamiliar words, too many things they had seen but could not explain. Elias raised one hand. The nearest voices quieted first. Then the silence spread outward through the gathering. He did not attempt to describe every chamber. He did not claim that the expedition understood the machines it had found. Instead, he removed the small glass device collected from the Technology and Innovation wing. It fit easily within his hand. Inside the clear bulbs, several dark paddles rested upon a narrow spindle. To the crowd, it appeared simple, almost useless. Elias carried it beyond the shadow of the museum and held it within the remaining evening sunlight. For several moments, nothing happened. Then the paddles began to turn. The motion was slow at first, then steady. Elias moved the bulb back into shadow. The paddles slowed and stopped. He returned it to the light. They began turning again. A murmur moved through the crowd. The nearest engineers leaned forward. Children rose higher upon shoulders. Even those who had spent the day waiting in fear now watched with open curiosity. The expedition had repeated the test inside the museum. Sunlight caused the motion, shadow ended it. That was all they knew. They could not explain why the paddles turned. They did not know what force moved them. They did not know how the device had been made. The small bulb became the clearest demonstration of everything they had discovered. They had returned with proof, not with understanding. Elias explained that the museum had preserved knowledge from a world far older and larger than their history suggested. The people of the first civilization had mapped the whole world and measured its size. The world was not a small land beneath an endless sky. It was a great sphere surrounded by darkness, with oceans and continents extending far beyond every known settlement. Their maps showed lands separated by distances so vast that journeys between them had once required machines capable of crossing the sky. The surviving exhibits also described the age of the world in numbers almost impossible to comprehend. Human kingdoms had risen only near the end of that history. Before them had existed forests, seas, and creatures from ages so distant that no human witness could have seen them. The world was not thousands of years old. It was billions. The crowd looked toward the museum entrance. The questions had not ended. But now everyone understood why the expedition could not answer them all. The ruin contained more than forgotten objects. It contained a world larger, older, and stranger than anything they had been taught. Elias continued while the last evening's sunlight turned the paddles inside the glass bulb. The expedition had learned that people once traveled beyond the world itself. A machine called Saturn V had carried humans to the moon. The pale object that crossed the night sky was not merely a distant light. People had stood upon it. They had walked across its surface and returned alive. Inside another chamber, the first civilization had built an artificial sky. By placing lanterns within the damaged machine, the expedition had cast broken constellations across a great dome. The builders had studied the heavens so carefully that they could reproduce their movement indoors. In another theater, they had found machines built to create lightning. The towers were silent now, but surviving images and plaques showed artificial bolts striking metal while people watched from nearby seats. A metal cage had allowed a person to stand within the storm without being harmed. The expedition could not explain how. Only that the first civilization had learned to create a force they still feared in the open sky, then guide it safely through a room. The museum also described invisible causes of infection. Illness did not always arise from foul air, curses, or weakness. Living things too small to see could enter wounds and bodies. The first civilization had developed medicines that killed those hidden causes. They had called them antibiotics. Such medicines had allowed people to survive infections that now killed without mercy. The expedition had not returned with the knowledge to make them. but it had returned with proof that infection could be understood, fought, and conquered. The exhibits also showed that sunlight could be harnessed. The spinning paddles inside the glass bulb were only a small demonstration. Other machines had once gathered light from the sun and transformed it into useful power. The expedition did not yet know how. They knew only that the claim had been repeated across surviving displays, diagrams, and machines. Elias lowered the glass bulb. The paddles slowed as the evening light weakened. He reminded the crowd that most of what they had found remained beyond them. They had learned names without mastering their meanings. They had seen effects without understanding their causes. The museum contained knowledge that could not be carried out in a single day, or by 7 people, or perhaps within one lifetime. The first expedition had not returned with the wisdom of the first civilization. It had returned with evidence of how much wisdom had been lost. The crowd looked from the small glass device toward the dark entrance of the museum. Hours earlier, the ruin had been only another silent building from the fallen world. Now they knew that inside it waited the moon, artificial lightning, forgotten medicine, the power of sunlight, the age of the world, and the true scale of the earth. The questions did not stop, but they changed. The people no longer asked whether the museum contained anything worth finding. They asked when the next expedition would begin.